Alright, so patch 9.01 is bringing some new stuff into the mix, but the real question that players have today is, after the changes at the beginning of the act, how is the meta shaping up? The Duelist role basically got completely overhauled, and with 2 new maps entering the mix, has anything changed? What agent should you be picking? What should you avoid? Are there any sleeper picks for specific maps? We're going to break it all down for you today, so stay tuned. For this tier list, we are trying something a little bit new. As the game releases more and more agents, I'm sure you noticed that our tier lists have grown larger and larger. Rather than covering every single agent, we're just going to be talking about the ones that are new in the meta to save you guys a little bit of time as well as save us a bit of sanity. And remember, if you are struggling to climb in Valorant, SkillCapped is the only place that guarantees you'll climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. Otherwise, you can claim a full refund. We do this because our service really does work, and this is the best time of the act to get in on SkillCapped, as we just released tons of exclusive courses designed for you to power learn the most important concepts of climbing Valorant stupidly fast compared to those who don't use SkillCapped. Join today for unlimited access to the world's most famously effective Valorant guides, and remember, one subscription gives you access to all of our other games as well. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to stop wasting your time being hard stuck and get the rank that you actually want. So with that said, let's get into it. Starting out with the Duelist role, the 2 duelists that have always remained on top have been Jett and Raze. You may have expected the changes in patch 8.11 to mix this up, but guess again. You see, the problem is that these guys entry differently from any other duelist, making them basically irreplaceable. Now, this doesn't mean that we aren't seeing anything new, but I want to emphasize that these guys are still on top. And by on top, I mean being played in about 90% of pro comps. These guys have been on top for quite a while now, so if you're really looking for a duelist to master, they are a really safe pick. Over at SkillCapped, we have courses for both of them that detail the advanced tech that duelist mains utilize to frag out in their matches, so I recommend checking those out if you're seriously looking to pop off. As mentioned though, there are a few color picks. After the neon changes, you're actually seeing a few teams choose to rock neon on select map. Now, one of the maps that they're opting to use neon for is actually Split, which is not currently in our rotation, so who cares, but they also really seem to like neon on Sunset. When paired with some sort of flash initiator, mainly Breach and Kayo, a good neon can be really scary. Her slide changes are actually pretty nuts, and if you're able to clear that choke point without getting traded instantly, you can do some crazy things. One of the issues that many neon players maybe encounter though is that because she's so fast, it's really easy to outpace your team. So if you plan on playing neon, just try to stay close and play off of your team's utility. Another duelist that has been dipping their toe into the meta is actually Yoru. With the new map rotation, a couple of teams have been trying out Yoru on Haven, which as a Yoru player myself makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of things that really favor him on this map. For starters, there's a bunch of great locations for him to TP onto site, providing him cover, and his flashes work really well, almost putting an Initiator hat on in many situations. Along with that, he's also one of the best op agents in the game, and there's a lot of great sightlines for the operator on Haven. I won't dwell on it too much, but I do like seeing the Yoru, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more of him as time goes on. Finally though, the duelist that you're all wondering about, ISO isn't seeing a crazy amount of pro play, but he is seeing a little bit. Don't take this as gospel for your ranked games, this guy is still absolutely running people over in ranked, but in pro play it's not super drastic. There are ways to deal with ISO's shield. Mollies work well against it, shock darts and paint shells are great, and even just spamming through the corner of walls for chip damage can work well. In ranked, people aren't nearly as thorough, so his shields can really snowball, but in pro play so far he has been pretty tame. We will see if that changes over time, and I'll keep you posted, but for now, Jett and Raze are still king. As for controllers, with the addition of Clove, many of you may think that they are on top, but the reality is that Omen and Viper are still the dynamic duo that they always have been. They both have a particularly solid place in the meta for their own reasons. Even with the removal of Breeze, Viper is still very prominent due to her lurk potential. In high elo, a major hurdle to overcome is actually the concept of vision denial. So for example, you're playing defense on Lotus. What happens when your teammates fight Rubble and they don't see anyone, and then your C player peeks out Mound and doesn't see anyone either? That's right, you know the attackers essentially have to be in one spot. As an attacker, this kind of sucks. Viper's wall is so powerful for this reason though, because now it's much harder to actually gather this information. The defenders can fight Rubble, but is it actually clear, or are the attackers just waiting? Also, it just makes these angles a nightmare to fight in general. These Viper walls are present among pretty much every single map in the game and can really add some spice to your offense, which is a bit of a necessity in high elo where players will gather information so effectively. Omen is a completely different story though. For Omen, he's actually great because he's basically just a duelist, initiator, controller hybrid. Quite literally a jack of all trades. He can blind for his teammates, he can smoke for his team, and he can entry with his Shrouded Step. This agent is literally just insane and basically gives your team the extra dive that they need to get onto site. Although we have both Raze and Jett in the S tier, you'll rarely run both of them together because Omen will oftentimes pick up that second duelist slot for your team. Once again, these two controllers are going to be picked around 90% of the time. If you're looking to up your controller game, we do have brand new courses for Viper and Omen available at SkillCapped as well, featuring dozens of setups and one ways that you can utilize. That doesn't mean that our other controllers are not played though. Harbor is actually going to be placed slightly higher than the other ones on the list just due to his unique use case. While Brimstone, Astra, and Clove could essentially be interchangeable, there's not really a replacement for what Harbor does. We're not saying he's great or that he will be run on every single map, but if you're looking to secure plants or protect diffusers, he's really good at that. Especially when paired with a Gekko or a second controller, Harbor is very powerful. Moving into Initiators, this is probably the most healthy role in the game. If we were to place any of the Initiators above the other ones, we would place Gekko as an S tier agent for the role. Take that with a grain of salt, all the Initiators are great, but Gekko just brings that extra something to the role that the others just don't with Wingman. Being able to plant and defuse the spike safely is an absolute game changer, especially in rank. Along with this, he has the ability to constantly cycle his utility. Keep in mind though, although Gekko's utility is incredible, that doesn't actually mean alone it's stronger than the other Initiators in the role. For example, since Gekko's flash is destructible, it's not always going to actually be better than a Kayo flash. Or Wingman might not always be as good as a Fade Prowler. Thrash might not always be as good as... Okay, Thrash is pretty freaking good. Aside from Gekko, all of the other Initiators have crafted their own place into the meta. It really depends on what map you're playing and what you want to go for. Sova is great on maps like Ascent. Fade is great on Sunset and Lotus. Skye is really good on Bind. It's genuinely a really healthy role. The only agents who maybe aren't as common as the others would be Kayo and Breach. And that's saying something because these two still see a lot of play. But they don't really see too much play as a solo initiator, they're more known as flash initiators. Because they don't have any hard info, it can be easy to abuse one and dones and corners against these guys, since your team has limited ways of clearing them. So oftentimes you'll see these guys run with one of the other initiators that provide slightly better information. As mentioned earlier, these guys also pair really well with dive duelists such as Raze, Neon, and Jett. Finally though, for the Sentinel role, there is one that has reigned supreme for a few acts now, and that's going to be Cypher. He's all around one of the best Sentinels in the game. Contrary to what many might believe, he's mostly about information rather than stalling. Sure, in ranked you may get a bunch of kills off of your tripwires, but the higher that you climb, the better teams get at dealing with them. The really great thing about Cypher is that he has 2 tripwires and his camera that are both able to provide global information across the map. Considering Killjoy is range locked, this really gives Cypher an edge that no other Sentinel has, making him the premier choice for your Sentinel tier. Killjoy isn't far off though. She's still great and still sees a lot of pro play, but we just consider her to be 1 tier below Cypher. Nevertheless, we cover setups for both of these agents across all maps in our Master and Minutes courses over at SkillCapped, so definitely check those out if you're looking to master them. There are 2 other Sentinels that may surprise you though that have creeped their way into pro play. First off, we gotta talk about Deadlock. A few teams are picking up this previously considered D tier agent and finding that she could prove very effective in the right hands. It seems the change to GrabNet a few patches ago that made it persist until removed, along with the radius increase, made this ability an incredible tool. Ironically, the weakest part about Deadlock's kit right now is actually her tripwires, which aren't that bad. The worst part about her tripwires is that they don't really provide any hard info, so on offense they don't work as a flank guard. And on defense you can't really leave them like a Cypher can. But if you're actually able to get them set up in a position where enemies are likely to run through, they can be super great since they activate so fast now. For this reason, Deadlock is kind of played like you might play a Reyna or a Phoenix, just playing them on the front line and fighting with your team. Since you could chuck your barrier mesh a pretty great distance, she works really well on the front line. Sage is also a niche pick that is seeing play nowadays on Sunset by a few teams. There's a lot of really crazy Sage angles that you can get on Sunset utilizing her wall that make her a really obnoxious agent to deal with. Like seriously, check out this wall on the steps of A-Site. Like what in the world is this angle? It's nuts, and while Sage can't play up there herself, she's able to boost teammates up to this position for essentially free kills. There's also angles like this in Elbow that are really powerful, and beyond this, she's also just really great at fighting for space with slow orbs and her res. Although Sage maybe isn't valued as highly as the other Sentinels, she's definitely not as bad as many people make her out to be. We even place her in the B tier since she still doesn't fit into every team comp, but definitely still a strong pick. Alright though guys, before we wrap this up, let me tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and we think that is a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered you that. Not us though. We offer this for years because our service really does work. It works so well in fact that we're able to offer by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. With hundreds of videos curated into over 50 courses, no one else can compare. We also offer direct access to all of our coaches in the Discord, so if you have any questions or even want to get a VOD looked at, then you can do that there. I'm not kidding you when I say that we offer a ridiculous amount of value with our subscription, so if you're not taking advantage of it yet, then you definitely need to start. Other than that though, that is going to do it all for us today. Thank you for watching. My name is Casey, and we will catch you in the next one.